Hello, welcome to the Minimalist EDC. My name's Chris, and today we have a disassembly and maintenance video on this guy right here. This is the Asher Douglas. So you may be asking, why are there two on the table? So if you watched my last video, while I was editing the video, I issue with a lockup on the knife, and I'll show you here. So if you just open the knife up, the lock bar does not engage. It's just a simple open and close. If you flick it, you can actually get some engagement, it's fine. But just a gentle rollout, the lock bar doesn't ever engage. It's just a little bit of issue with the lock bar geometry and the lock bar being slightly too big or too tall to actually fit into underneath the tang of the blade. So that being said, I uploaded that on a Saturday. Within 12 hours, Asher Knives actually reached out to me on Instagram, gave me some troubleshooting steps to see if we could fix the problem, and then failing that, they offered to replace it. So I'm very happy with the resolution. They were quick, courteous, prompt, and got the knife in my hands immediately. So we are going to continue with doing the disassembly and maintenance on this guy right here, and the other one will go back to Asher Knives. This one, complete and total lockup. We don't have an issue there. And so I did watch some of the other YouTube videos on this knife, and I didn't see anyone else having that problem. It's not something if you're considering this knife, I would definitely not hold it against them and not worry about it, because I think it's just a one-off production issue that is easy to fix. So that being said, let's move forward. So this thing come out of the box, it really doesn't need disassembly and maintenance. It's actually lubed very well. The action is phenomenal. I don't have any problems with it. The centering out of the box is really good. You see that right there. And the detent is a little light, but that's not something I'm going to try to fix today. But it's good. Like, this is ready to go right out of the box. But for the sake of this video, we're going to show you how to take it apart, maintain it, and put it back together. So what we're going to need is our driver, T6 and T8. So we're going to start with taking this pocket clip off. I think that's the only T6s we're going to need. So let's get that guy off. And while I'm taking this pocket clip off and thinking about it, this knife actually comes with a few options for your pocket clip. So you got this black one right here that kind of matches the hardware and the black filler tab right here. There is a bead blasted one, and there is a longer version of the black one. I prefer the shorter ones. They just work better for me personally. And the longer one, in my hand, this curve right, S curve right, or U curve right here, it forms a little bit of a hot spot and just not as comfortable, where this one stays out of my the middle of my palm better. But it could be a personal preference. But it's really nice that the manufacturer is offering multiple options for the customers. Are these magnetic? They seem to be. Yeah. There's some magnetism between these two. I mean, my driver is magnetic. Maybe it magnetized it a little bit. I'll check that out later. So, back to the knife. We are going to get T8. And how do I want to approach this? Since there's no screw back here, I'm going to have to go in through the front. And we'll get the pivot out. Alright, so we're looking at the pivot. Looks like it does come with a little bit of Loctite, which is not a bad thing. It shows that the manufacturer cares and actually wants to keep your pivot in place. And thankfully they didn't Loctite it shut for us. We're going to get this other body screw out. And what do we have inside? Okay, cool. So the scale is that nice micarta feeling that we talked about before. It's milled out a little bit to have the nested liners, which is a nice feature. And then right here for the liner lock. And then we get a good look at that skeletonized liner right here. So you see they've taken care to mill these out for weight reduction, which is really good. And we have this thing is stuck on pins. Not stuck, but it's attached via pins. Let me see, because we got a pin right here and we got the pivot right here. I'm going to try to push the pivot out from the front here. Oh, it's in there. Well, this may just be easier to go take the back scale off as well. So we'll do that. Let's see, what do we got attached? So sometimes it's really useful to have like a little prying tool. And I like this plastic one right here because it won't scratch anything, it won't damage anything. You just kind of get underneath a surface or two. There we go. Okay. So I probably didn't need to take that back screw out. Just probably should have resulted to this first. So we can take a look at the bearings that we have and the detent ball track. Come on. So we've got caged bearings, and so there's no bearing, like titanium bearing tracks or anything, but I wouldn't expect to see that on a knife of this price range anyway. Taking a look at the blade itself, you see this is where the detent ball rolls up the knife and then nests into that little hole that forms your detent. What's kind of interesting is the detent ball track is along the edge of this blade, where normally there's a little bit of extra steel on the other side of that track. It's interesting that he's decided to go with the detent ball track so close to the edge of the steel. It's kind of impressive that they've got it dialed into that level of specificity. So it works. Kudos. All right. So we do see for as far as maintenance, we do see a little bit of gunk that's in here. This is just going to be factory grease. Factory grease across the board, doesn't matter if you're a budget knife or a high-end knife, is not typically the best, and then it's also stored in a warehouse or shipped and gets hot and kind of congeals. So we're going to get that cleaned out, and then we are going to put it back together. All right, awesome. So what I'm going to need is my generic rubbing alcohol and a paper towel. Okay, so we're ready to begin. And one thing, just a tip for anyone who's new to taking apart their knives, always have a plan for containing the little bits because they can get away from you. Like I have this disassembly mat where I have these little slots for holding stuff, but one way that I do things is sometimes I just use a scale. Like I have a stop or a lanyard post, and I have a stop pin and a backspacer and screws. Like it all kind of fits in the scale and just kind of sits out of your way. So it's not a bad thing to just understand that screws can get lost, and if they do, your knife is ruined. So we'll start with our maintenance. First thing I'm going to do is get a little bit of rubbing alcohol on a paper towel, and you can use any good lint-free material, like the little cloths you get for cleaning gun parts are probably best. But we're just going to clean up the bearing racers right here. There's a little bit of crud that's stuck on there, so one thing that's good for that is just grab a Q-tip, a little rubbing alcohol on it. I'm going to go round and round in here. Yeah, that's working much better. And so I'm going to get these, and then I'm going to get the ball bearings, and then I'm going to take care of the bearing racers on the scales. And while I do that, I'm going to ask you nicely to please like and subscribe to the video. I just do this as a hobby, but if I can get a few more subscribers, the algorithm will see that people like my video and will share it with more people that are in the knife community, and more people can come to my channel and participate and help me grow the community. So if you'd like to see more videos like this with disassemblies, maintenance, knife reviews, unboxings, just hit the little subscribe button. You'll get more of this. I appreciate it. So we got our bearings clean. Next I'm going to go into the bearing surface on the scales here. And so we're just going to get that nice and clean. Looks good. Perfect. And I'm just going to go around here. Also noticing that the pivot was a little bit creaky to get off. That's due to two things. One, not really the dirtiness of it, but just so it has this paint on it, right? This coating. So a little bit of that, but also this is a captured pivot, which I very much appreciate. So this captured pivot, you see how it's D-shaped? And one of the reasons I've left it in there is so it maintains its orientation because it only goes in one way. And so when we look at this liner here, you see this also has a D-shaped hole, so it's only going to fit in one way. That it helps with the pivot not turning, and it allows you to actually unscrew the thing. So just a note about the liner here. This is the lock bar, right? And so the spring tension of this bar right here determines your detent strength, because this is the pressure of this is pushing into that blade face. So with the blade face right here, you have a little ball that goes in that hole. And so the pressure it takes you to get that ball out of that hole is your detent. So if you ever wanted to increase the detent or lighten it, you can take it apart just like this. And if I wanted to lighten the detent, I'd push it in this direction ever so slightly. You push it just past the point of where it could normally go, hold it there for a few seconds, let it go, just ever so slightly, because it, like, little adjustments make big differences. And if you wanted to tighten it, you could push it in a little bit. And then what I suggest is micro adjustments. Take it apart, do that, put it back together, see if you like it. If it's too much, dial it out, dial it back, whatever you needed. So just a thought about that. It can help you with dial in a detent if that is necessary. I don't feel it's necessary on this one. Like I said earlier, I think the detent's a little light, but that's a personal preference. So let's put this guy back together because we've got it all clean. So where are we going to start? I would like to put the backspacer back on. And so the reason why I'm starting with that is because this little post right here, or the little hole right here, is going to allow me to get the screw in, I think. So, in theory, okay, sorry about that. One thing that I didn't notice when I was disassembling is this little post right here. When you put this, I was putting the screw back in here and it doesn't do anything because there's nothing for it to grasp onto, and that seemed bizarre. So what I didn't take into account is this little post right here actually goes inside the backspacer. In many other designs, when you see a backspacer like this, the liner itself will have the threads that hold the screw in there. And so as you can see right here, the liner is actually wider than the screw holes in the micarta, so it's not going to do that. What you have to do and use this little guy, you put that post in, which provides us with threads, and then this can go in. In my haste to take this apart, I thought it was a stop pin, which it kind of looks like. So once that's in, it threads into this piece, which holds the backspacer in place. Next, here's our little lanyard pin. Debated whether I was going to put this back in because I don't use lanyards, but you know, why not? It's kind of hidden and that's fine. Next thing we are going to do is put some lubrication on the bearing racers and the bearings themselves. So I'm going to put a little bit of lubrication, and I'm using KPL. I'm kind of getting it everywhere, but that's fine. It'll all work itself out. One thing I like to do is I put the bearings face open toward the blade, and I put just 1 or 2 little drops in between a few of the bearings to let it run the lubrication between all the little bearings in there. Next, I'm going to get the blade in there. And there it goes. A little bit easier this time, now that we clean that off. And then we will add a little bit of lubrication to the blade side here and get our bearing on that. Whoops, I put that in the wrong way. And there's honestly, there's no wrong way. There's bearings on both sides. I just have a personal preference for the open side of the runner to go blade side. It'll work just fine either way. I think I'm just a little bit picky about it. And my post is getting away from me. Another reason why, to make sure everything is contained. Things tend to roll away. Next, we are going to put a little bit of lubrication on the other liner. And this basically has to line up with the backspacer back here, and this is actually the stop pin that's in the this liner. One of the interesting innovations here, and I don't know if I talked about this before, but the stop pin only comes out one way, or I don't think, yeah, it could only come out this way. So when you're disassembling it, like, it won't come out the other way, which is quite nice. It's one less thing to get lost and roll away on you. And so this may be the most annoying part, but not too bad. So one of the reasons why I was talking about earlier, the reason I kept the pivot in the back, is to keep the alignment with that D-shaped pivot. So when I put this down, it's already in position for me and can just slide right on top. So I got the stop pin in there. I've got my holes all lined up for the front liner, or the show side, and I'm just going to slip that on. Next, I'm going to get my pivot in, because that'll hold the whole thing together while I work on the rest of it. All right, I'll dial in the pivot tension in a minute. And then I'm going to get the last body screw in there. Great. And then, so as you can see, like, we're a little off center putting it back together. I'm going to test the action. It's a little loose, so tighten that up. Yeah, so by tightening the pivot, we put tension on the blade, we got it back to center. Still got a little bit of blade rock, so we can probably go a little bit further. Yeah, we are dialed in. And so what I'll do in a minute, because I don't want to back that out at the moment, is I'll take the blue Loctite, run some on the threads and put it back in and redial it back in. That way we were not going to see that screw loosen on you. So the blue Loctite is definitely the one you want to use. The red one will lock it up forever. Blue, you can break it with just a little bit of torque and tension. So the last thing we want to do is get our pocket clip back on. So I have a personal preference for the bead blasted one. This is very interesting. Like, things are sticking to this clip. Yeah, you see that? It's magnetic. I've never seen a pocket clip that comes magnetic. That is bizarre. Okay, nothing wrong with it. It's just new to me. All right, so of course I'm using the wrong bit driver. Get my T6 out. That's one of the nice things about using a magnetic driver, is it'll hold the screw in place while you move it in. Now when you're working on higher end knives, you're typically dealing with titanium screws or titanium hardware, which won't do that on you. But we're all back together. So we end up with the Asher Douglas all put back together. We have the bead blasted clip and pretty nice action. Yeah. So I look forward to doing a full review on this guy. It's a fun little knife. It's nice and slicey. It's well put together. And yeah, thanks for hanging out with me and going through this disassembly and maintenance. Please like and subscribe. Y'all have a great day.